Alright, let's get some label on this bad boy before going further into the composition and lighting and so forth. If you go to the resource folder, you will find a folder called labels. And here I have prepared a bunch of different labels with both diffuse maps and with bump maps. I'm not going to cover how I did those, but it's basically done in Photoshop, just using the text tool and saving it out as PNGs on transparent background. If you want to, you can always go into the PSD files that you have in the folder as well and have a look at how they are set up. All right, so we have some labels for the right side here, and we have some, or the left side it is. We have it for the right side as well. Then we have one that we will put on this part here, show some numbers, and then we have two that we're going to put on this part down here. Let's start with the left side up here. And when I'm applying labels, especially to flat parts, that's the easiest one to do. I double click on the material, then I go into the labels. But before adding anything, I go to the camera tab and I'll make sure that I look straight onto the surface. So change that to 90 and the inclination to 0. And then I often also use the orthographic view to see it without any perspective distortion. So when I'm here, I double click on the material again, go to the labels tab and click on this plus sign here. It says add label. So I pick that and I'm here in the resource folder, in the label folder. And I want to start with the label right number, whoops, that was left, label, left, diffuse. So I select that, hit open. And then I click on the part where I want to place it. So I haven't been careful about the sizing here, so we have to go in and scale it down a bit, as you see. So scroll down and use this scale slider to get to a point where it looks correct. 0.25 looks good, I think. And then I want to angle it a bit so it follows the angle of the geometry. Seems like -30 will give us what we're looking for. So it's placed around here. Cool. So now I can always adjust the view to see where this is going. So if I need to do any further position adjustments, I can always use the shift X and Y options here. But I think that this looks quite fine. And just for the performance sake of performance, I'm going to use just the material. Okay, so now it seems a bit flat, but to make it look like it's bulging out of the surface, we can add this bump map that I've done into the bump channel as well. So double click on the bump channel, select the label left bump, hit open, and you see straight away, let's open the region view, Command-Shift-R, Control-Shift-R. So this is with the bump map and this is without. So you really clearly see that it seems like it's added onto the surface. That is pretty cool. So right now, this label is not affected by the bump that we have on this part. So if you want that, for example, if we have a dent like here and you want the texture to, or the label to be affected by that as well, you have to go into this material, double click on the material, the base material, and then go to the textures tab and hit apply bump to labels. Check that. And that will make the bumps come through to the labels as well. So if we take this label and shift it upwards just a tiny bit. Might be hard to see, but the label is actually affected by these bumps. All right, let's move it back down. So when you apply a label, you can actually change the material properties for the label only. So right now it says plastic in label type, but you can actually go ahead and do like a metal material for the plastic. So if we zoom in a bit and rotate the lighting to something like this, you'll see that it gets this metallic appearance. You can give it any other type of material if you want to, but for this case we just want to go with plastic. I just wanted to show this this option because it's quite useful. Sometimes the labels has like a metal appearance. But for this project, we're going with plastic. Might want to give it a bit of roughness here. I think that looks cool. So let's jump out of the region view and proceed with the labels for the right side. So right click and say show all parts. Double click on the material here. And again, I want to go into a view that is straight on. So I do that in the camera tab, adjust the azimuth and inclination to 90 and 0. And I'm still in the orthographic mode. Double click on the material again to get back and go to the labels tab and then add a new label. So we're going with the label right, number 1. Diffuse. Hit open. And position it here. Just left click where you want to add it and hit OK. Oh, wait with that. We'll just adjust the scaling to 0.25 as the other one. And we're going to angle it 30 degrees like the other one. And then we can click approximately where we want it. I think this is good. I hit OK down here. And again, I'm going up to the bump. Double click on that and load in the label 1 bump. Open. And again, you can see we get the effect of this label being applied on top of the other material. The reason why I have a separate map for the bump channel is that I want the bump to be a bit soft looking. So we have these nice roundings in the bump. If I just use the diffuse, which you can do by holding down Alt and left click and dragging it over to the bump, you see it's still protruding from the surface, but it's the transition is way harder. So to get that soft bump feeling, I've created the maps, the bump maps, with a bit of Gaussian blur applied to them, and that will give you that soft edge. So if we go ahead and look at the actual image, you can see that it's blurred a bit. So you can use that to soften up your bump maps. Let's go ahead and apply the soft one again. Label right 1 bump. Great. And as on the other side, let's check what the roughness was. 0.42, 0.042. Let's just go with 0.04 for the sake. Whoops. And yeah, let's do the same on this one. 0.04. Then we had another one for this right side. So again, I go to add label tab. Go to label right 2, diffuse, hit open and click where I want to place it. And again, here I want to go into a straight on view. If I'm in a crooked angle, it will get applied flat on this surface, or perpendicular perpendicular to the normals, but the angling will be off. So that's why I go straight on like this, and go to the material tab here and adjust the scale to 0.25. And this one sits around here. Maybe I want to make this one smaller. Cool, like this, hit OK. And as before, go up to the label textures, add in the bump map, label right to bump, hit open, see that it applies, and then go to label properties and add a roughness of 0.04. Show all parts. Nice. So that's the labels for these two parts. Let's go ahead and have a look at the numbers that we're going to put on this part. So double click on the material, go to the textures or labels tab, hit add label on the plus sign. And the one we're looking for is the one called label dial diffuse. This is a row of numbers going from +2 to -2. So hit open. And as before, I want to go to a straight view and apply it here. And again, you see that it's way too big. So we go to the material tab, into the labels tab, and scroll down to the scale. Maybe 0.25 will work here as well. Seems like it, yeah. But because this part is cylindric, it's not flat. The label gets skewed like close to the edges here. So for this one, we want to go with the cylindrical mapping type, which is great when you have a complete cylindric surface. But the problem that we have right now is that this material is linked to this part as well. So when you want to map a cylindrical label, you want to make sure that the material is only on that cylinder. So I right click on this part and hit unlink material. So double click on it to make sure that's selected and go to the label tab and scroll down and hit fit for the y-axis. You can see that, yeah. You can use these fit options to fit to the cylinder. Whoops. Let's scale it down a bit. Okay, so to place this correctly, I open up the mapping tool and I can drag it upwards. Let's just look at this material only again. Drag it upwards and I rotate it. And as you see, there's some weird thing going on with the scaling that happens sometimes when you use these fit buttons. So let's just go with 0.35 in both of them. Whoops, now it's upside down. Flip vertical, uncheck that one. Cool, so now we're right back on track. So I take the scaling down a bit further. Move this one up and drag it around here. Let me just check if I'm straight on in that angle. Yes. Cool. I want to have this line going just on the button here. So I'm happy with this position and I hit OK. Cool. Then I go back to the material tab, select the label in the labels tab and go ahead and add the bump map. Label, dial, diffuse, or label dial bump. That's what we're looking for. Hit open. And you see that it's protruding like the other one. Actually, for this one, I want this to go inwards. So I go down in the bump options and take the bump height down to -1. And you see the effect, especially if you look at the number 2 up here. This is with the bump map and this is without the bump map. So you clearly get an illusion of depth by using this bump map. So let's show all parts. And you see we still have this crooked label over here. So go to this material properties in the labels and select the label and hit delete. So now we have that out of the way. Awesome. Let's have a look at the last part where we want to put some labels on, and it's this part down here. Let's show that one only. Go into an angle straight on. Double click on the material, go to the label tab and add in the label. So the reason why we see these other labels that we have applied already is that it's the materials are linked. So the labels are basically also on this material, but they only positioned in that specific position, so you don't see them down here. So we're going to add in this new label. Go to label bottom number 2. It's called diffuse. And as you see, we only have a diffuse for this one. And it's because that the bump for this label is rather as a hard transition. So we are going to use the diffuse as the bump as well. I hit open, position it, and go down to the scale, drag it down. And I think it sits something like this. It's actually overlapping the edge here. So that's fine. I hit OK. Go to scroll up to the labels properties of the label textures. And then I hold down Alt, left, and drag the diffuse over to the bump as well. So if we zoom in, we can see that the bump has been applied, but we want to have it go inwards instead. So I go down and type in -1. I rarely go above -1 or +1, but sometimes it can help to give you the effect you're after, but often it will sort of give an distorted view. So I'll stick with -1 for this because I can't really see any difference anyways. So that's good for now. And then the last label we are going to add is actually just a bump map using this material. It's only giving the illusion of this material coming out. So instead of doing that as a label, I'm going to add in another bump using the material graph. So double click on the material and open up the material graph. And the graph looks rather confusing now because as you see, actually all the label is shown in here, and they are, it's just like new materials added on as labels with diffuse and bumps. So let's hold down Shift and left click and drag to get hold of all these and drag them down so we can see what's going on. We want to have a look at the bumps here. So whenever you want to add more than 2 bump maps, you can create another bump add node by right-clicking and go to Utilities, or right-click on the one you have already and hit duplicate. Then I'm going to drag that one into bump 2 and take this dent map that we had into the bump number 1, and then we have room to add in a third one. So I right-click, hit Textures, and hit the texture map. And double-click on that and hit the folder to load in the map you want to use. And I want to use the one called label bottom bump. So I select that one. We can't see the preview because it's just white on white. So we hit open and you can see it down here. And I think I'll just add it to the bump map. But sometimes it's easier to see what's going on if you, as I showed earlier, hit C on the keyboard to show the color information, or this button up here, by the way. double click on the map and then adjust the scaling. So we can see right now it's all over the place, but we can get rid of that by unchecking this repeat checkbox. And I also don't want to sync it to make sure we don't mess up anything. Let's take the scale down and also change the mapping to normal projection. Right now we see it on the other edges as well because it's projecting from all 6 sides. So let's just open up the project tab by hitting space on the keyboard and make sure we are in an angle again straight on. So change the mapping type to a normal projection, hit the position button and place it somewhere, around here. If I hit C on the keyboard and drag it into the bump, we can also see how it looks like. So I hit straight in the center here and scale it down to something like this, and then I can click and hold the left mouse button to fine adjust the position, and I hit OK when I'm done with that. Cool. Let's go ahead and take a look. The bump height is at 1. Let's see how it looks like. 0.5. 1 is good. So I close down the graph, maximize the window, zoom out, and let's check if it was applied anywhere else. Doesn't look like it, so I'm happy about that. Right click and hit show all parts, and now we have applied all our labels to the model. So now we are ready to move into the next phase, which is the composition, where we also start with looking at the ground material, and then we are going to do some lighting and so on. So proceed.